From the end of the 19th century until the first half of the 20th, it was known all over the world as the miracle fibre and used in thousands of products, mainly in the construction sector.
Asbestos, asbestos,
Asbestos?
Now we know that to handle this material safely, it's essential to wear a suit like this. Despite the health risks, asbestos is still used and traded in many countries.
It's all about making money from a cheap product.
In this episode of Transforming Business, we look at the legacy of the industry behind the toxic material and visit a Dutch company that claims it can recycle it in a sustainable way. In the town of Spijkenisse in the Netherlands, AC Minerals claims to have developed an innovative method of completely dissolving asbestos fibres to get a harmless product that can be reused as a partial replacement for cement or as a microfiller in the concrete sector, contributing to the circular economy and the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions in the construction sector.
We don't use chemicals for destruction of the asbestos fibres, and we don't use any high temperature for destructing.
Ines Postema is the founder and general manager of AC Minerals.
We don't have any waste except of the packaging, and the cleaning water is reused as processed water.
In this pilot plant, maximum safety measures are in place to handle materials that contain asbestos, including the use of these special breathing suits. AC Minerals could offer a solution to a historic global health and environmental problem, and we'll come back to the company later. Asbestos is the name for a group of highly resistant fibrous minerals found naturally in soil and rocks. Although it's been used for thousands of years, it was popularised during the Industrial Revolution, most notably in the construction industry. Used in pipes, tiles, on roofs and in walls, and was also used in ships, brakes, clutches and other products.
It's very good at working as an insulator. It keeps hot things hot, cold things cold.
Arthur Frank is a clinical professor at Drexel University in Philadelphia in the United States.
It doesn't break down. It doesn't conduct electricity. It is very resistant to breakdown, so even acids and bases don't easily destroy it. And it was cheap. It's a naturally occurring mineral.
But by the middle of the 20th century, there was increasing medical evidence and studies linking asbestos exposure to various serious diseases. Its tiny fibres are tens of hundreds of times thinner than human hair. When they enter the body by being inhaled, for example, they can lodge in the lungs and other tissues, causing inflammation and progressive damage. That can lead to chronic respiratory or gastrointestinal problems such as asbestosis and non-malignant pleural diseases. And also cancer.
There are many cancers that are caused by asbestos. The ones that are best known, of course, are lung cancer. The other cancer that is well documented, of course, is mesothelioma.
The World Health Organization estimates that around 200,000 people die every year because of occupational exposure to asbestos alone. Construction workers and miners are at the highest risk, although asbestos-related illnesses have also been reported among rescue workers and cleanup crews following disasters like the attack on the Twin Towers in New York and the 2004 tsunami in Sri Lanka. The lethal effects of asbestos begin with its extraction, often from open-pit mines such as this one in Russia. When broken open, microfibres can fly and contaminate the air, water, crops or soil of nearby communities. This increases the risk of people getting the diseases we've mentioned. Asbestos microfibres can also affect wild and domestic animals. Once asbestos has been processed for use in a product, for example, for insulation in walls, it's still dangerous, especially if it deteriorates or breaks down. Disposing of asbestos-containing debris is another problem. But back in the Netherlands, AC Minerals says it can recycle this debris in a sustainable and cost-effective way. To do this, they use an alkaline base with water and temperatures below 100 degrees Celsius.
So here you see our pilot plant. It is in full containment, kept under pressure at all times. So it is a full production line. So we shredded the material, then we suspend it to a slurry. We have a milling step, then we have a reaction step, which involves also heating, and then we have a final milling step to make sure that all the material is dissolved. And then finally, it ends here as a final product.
The result is a calcium silicate sludge that serves as a binder. By drying it, it can also be made into a powder. The final product has an end-of-waste certificate, which, issued by the Dutch Environmental Protection Agency, legitimises it as a recycled material and not hazardous waste. By 2026, the company hopes to open this automated plant on an industrial scale. Initially, it will be able to process 25,000 tonnes of asbestos-containing debris annually, with the aim of eventually achieving 75 to 100,000 tonnes. That's the equivalent of processing more than 20 times the famous dome of the Pantheon Agrippa in Rome. Asbestos has been banned or restricted in more than 70 countries. But it's still mined and traded in many parts of the world with few restrictions. By far the largest producer is Russia. In 2023, it produced 630,000 metric tonnes. Kazakhstan followed with 260,000. In third and fourth place are China and Brazil, with around 200,000 respectively. Getting rid of the asbestos trade is not straightforward because of economic interest, removal costs, lack of awareness, and its continued use for various purposes, even though other natural substitutes exist.
There are other fibers that have been used or could be used. In some countries, literally, they've gone into the jungles, cut down plant material. Plants have fibrous material, and they were using plant material as a binder. Years ago, they found that instead of adding asbestos into certain products, you could add shredded newspaper. In India, they tax these other safer fibers so they can use asbestos.
And with a global value of more than $1 billion in 2023, the asbestos market remains lucrative. India is the world's leading importer of asbestos. Regulations for the use of this material are lax, and there's an underreporting of diseases associated with asbestos exposure. Despite the complete industrial ban or severe restrictions of use that began in the 1970s, in economic powers like the European Union, Canada, and the United States, the asbestos industry has found other markets.
Esas industrias migraron de Estados Unidos a México y América Latina, y las europeas se fueron a Asia y a África.
Guadalupe Aguilar Madrid is a professor and investigator in the medicine department at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. Since the year 2000, she's been studying this dangerous material. Latin America is lagging behind in the fight for an industrial ban. Only 6 countries have taken action to curb the use of the toxic substance: Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Honduras, and Uruguay. Yes, Brazil, while the country has banned the use of asbestos, it continues to extract and export it, taking advantage of a legal loophole in regional legislation. In other countries in the region, there are partial bans or regulations that are considered very lax and insufficient. In Mexico, for example, there are rules that regulate the use of asbestos in the workplace, but they don't address the safe disposal of waste. The rules also set supposedly safe levels of asbestos in the air, contradicting recommendations from the World Health Organization and the assessment of more than 70 countries that have banned it.
Lo que sucede con el asbesto es que tú lo empiezas a usar y ya hay un periodo de latencia. Desde que tú te expones hasta que te enfermas pueden pasar de 20 hasta 50 años.
Many potentially hazardous structures containing asbestos are still standing in Mexico today, such as roofs, water pipes, walls, and the well-known tinacos, or water tanks. You can even buy on the internet products that were made using asbestos. The town of San Pedro Barrientos, just over 20 kilometres from Mexico's capital, is a worrying example of how the lack of environmental and labour regulations can affect communities.
Ahí estuvo una empresa que se llamó Asbestos de México de 1938 hasta 1992. Se fue la empresa, pero no hubo una remediación de suelos y ahora la gente, ya la mayoría de los trabajadores ya murieron. pero se sigue muriendo gente de la comunidad.
Sí, de hecho muchos amigos. Uno de ellos es la familia Escalera. Su papá, José, falleció precisamente por el polvo del asbesto, ya que trabajaron ahí. Y uno de mis amigos, que era su hijo, Ernesto Escalera, también falleció de cáncer.
Tengo amigos ya difuntos que murieron de cáncer y algunos otros que todavía están en vida, pero con cáncer.
Mucha gente que trabajó en la empresa han fallecido de cáncer. Algunas personas que no trabajaron tan bien. Mi esposa también falleció de cáncer. Las personas que llegaron a tener el cáncer, pues los atendieron en el seguro y pues yo siento que la empresa se lavó las manos.
What's happening in San Pedro Barrientos is also happening elsewhere, in places where asbestos-producing companies were based. There could also be a significant underreporting of asbestos-related cancer cases across the country.
¿Qué encontramos? Pues resulta que los registros tienen un subregistro del 71%.
Mexico's case is replicated in many different countries where the asbestos industry is still active. But even in nations where it's banned, the safe disposal of the material remains a long-term challenge. In the European Union, asbestos was banned in 2005, and the removal of the toxic substance must be carried out under strict safety and planning measures. Most of the debris is sent to controlled landfill sites, where it must be isolated forever. A second option, encapsulate or encase the asbestos structure, which reduces the risk of contamination but does not eliminate the problem. For this reason, the European Union established that exploring alternative ways of treating asbestos waste in an environmentally sound manner is a priority. A third option would be to denature asbestos, meaning to alter its properties, making it safer to use or get rid of. The only commercially available technology to treat asbestos-containing waste in the EU is thermal plasma vitrification, done at a French firm, Inochtam, using temperatures over 1,000 degrees Celsius to melt the fibres. Although there are several techniques under development.
Somos conscientes también de que hay iniciativas experimentales para probar otras formas de finalizar el proceso y en vez de que vaya a un punto de gestión final donde se almacene, intentar inertizar el material, bien con encapsulado, con tratamientos térmicos.
Jose Blanco is the Secretary General of the European Decontamination Institute.
Pero hoy en día siguen siendo tratamientos, en la mayor parte de los casos, o experimentales o que todavía no tienen una autorización administrativa permanente para esas técnicas, que en algunos casos, insisto, puede estar ya aprobado y demostrado.
Going back to the Dutch company, it says its asbestos denaturing and recycling technique has the potential to be duplicated by other countries in the future.
And the main challenges for everyone who wants to replicate this process will face the problem that it's totally new. So there are investors who will support such a new initiative based on environmental and societal goals. But there are also investors who will wait till everything is in place.
But its success will depend on being able to demonstrate its effectiveness on a large scale in the country. Processing 1 tonne of asbestos cement costs around €400, much less than the vitrification technology, which costs €1,000 to €2,500. This is mainly due to the high energy costs. But storing untreated waste in landfills remains the least expensive option. To obtain authorisation from the European Union for commercial use, it'll have to go through a rigorous process of technical and scientific validation by the bloc's authorities.
Esas pruebas que se hacen se revisan por parte de científicos, en este caso tienen que ser además de varias familias médicas, tanto respiratorias, científicos especializados en sustancias químicas y demás, para validar que las características finales del material no supone una peligrosidad.
And it'll also be important for the company to secure institutional and investor support. Dutch and EU authorities will additionally have to impose a legal framework that favours alternative techniques away from landfills. Asbestos had its golden age, but it was simply too good to be true. Efforts to destroy or recycle it are an important step forward. But as valuable as these potential technological solutions are, what's essential is that regulations are in place to finally ban the industrial use of asbestos. That, together with cleanup and replacement plans, as well as campaigns to raise awareness of its dangers.
Returning to Mexico, Congresswoman Evangelina Moreno presented
a bill in October 24 that bans the commercial use of asbestos and seeks to protect the Mexican population from exposure to this harmful substance, with the aim of aligning with international health and safety standards.
This is not the first time a ban on asbestos has been sought in Mexico, but now with more political backing, this time could be different. Its approval, however, could still take months. What's happening in your country? What kind of regulations are there regarding asbestos? Let us know in the comments.